And as soon as I let go, I was able to allow that relationship to flourish into what it had to be. Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me today, talking about a fabulous topic, holding on too tightly. And when holding on too tightly to something really can affect the amazing, beautiful outcome and limit your greatness and your success. Thank you again for joining us last time when we were speaking with the one and only Lindsay Lewis, and she introduced to us EFT tapping, the techniques that really have changed so many people's lives to reroute those neural pathways and help people find new habits, new belief systems about themselves, and really make enormous strides in their own lives. So if you haven't checked out that episode, it's with Lindsay Lewis. I highly recommend it. And next week, we're going to be speaking with the one and only Erica Del Sordo. She's a voiceover artist and a former reporter on the news. I think she was doing air traffic control down in South Florida. So you might recognize her name. Fascinating perspective as she's starting a new business and how she's been pivoting and realizing what are her strengths and taking care of herself being one of the most important things to pay attention to when she's been realizing new dreams and trying new business ventures. So I look forward to seeing you then when we talk to Erica Del Sordo. And today's phenomenal episode is all about this holding on too tightly. I'm sure that you've done this in your life if you're anything like me. In fact, so many high achievers and successful business owners struggle with this. What is it? What am I talking about? I'm talking about strangling the outcome of a dream by controlling it, by micromanaging it, by insisting on the only version of success that you're willing to see, putting something into motion. What actually happens is we resist the miraculous outcome that might be even greater than anything we could have thought of. You know, this is so apparent in business, in relationships, in love, and in friendships. I see the same thing happening in my parenting. Meditation, for sure. This is a phenomenal way to think about meditation if you've been struggling with meditation. And then, most certainly, in terms of happiness. You know, there have been a few times in my life where I really struggled with this in terms of just wanting to control the outcome so badly and not realizing that by forcing my control over something, I was really holding myself back from seeing my true potential. And it's interesting because we don't do it purposefully. In fact, we almost trick ourselves into doing it when we have a certain modicum of success from actually trying to control something. It does work to a certain extent, but it always leaves you feeling unfulfilled and always leaves you feeling sometimes a victim to your circumstances. So I think 2020 has shown us that we really don't have control of anything outside of ourselves. And many people felt fearful. Why is this happening? Trying to give a purpose to occurrences outside of ourselves. And what it really is that we're never in control of things outside of us. We can't control the weather. We can't control the economy individually. We really can't control other people. And yet we do, we try to. And that's where that struggle happens. That's where the frustration happens when we try to control things outside of ourselves. And the truth is, we really only have control over our own reactions and our own dreams and our own beliefs. And actually, that's where the strength is that we do have control over those things. And isn't it interesting that we forget that we don't have control of others and we forget that we do have control over ourselves and our own reactions and responses? You know, I used to be the most controlling person I know. I really was. And as I mentioned earlier, I fell into it by accident. I was very good in school. I was studied hard. And when I put in the time and the effort, I saw great results in terms of my um, grades and in terms of my achievements in school. And I found that when I applied myself to anything, sometimes it didn't come as naturally to me, but if I stuck with it and I showed up, there was that compounding effect of always showing up, and it actually worked. And there's a certain level of success. And so I got this idea that I actually had influence over the world around me and I could control the world around me. And where this happened most to me was in business. I created a business, my first orthodontic practice, and I saw that if I showed up and controlled certain things, then I could see some success. But there came a point in time where the growth of my business would not allow me to stay on top of everything anymore. And I needed to start delegating. This is the natural evolution of any business. We can't do everything ourselves. And yet we tell ourselves the story that we do it best. And why shouldn't I control it if I can do it better than anybody else? Have you ever heard yourself say that? Let me just do it myself. Well, when I started delegating and hiring team members to support me, I started wanting to micromanage. And that's what the term is in business is micromanaging. And whenever I tried to micromanage to an unrealistic extent, that's when I choked off the happiness. I choked off all potential of my team members instead of allowing them to flourish and bring their own greatness, their own perspective to the job title, to the job description. I was trying too hard to manage and control every aspect of it. And that's when the practice and the business just really started to involute and lose the power that it really had the potential for. And the frustration and the shame and the negative self-talk that comes along with that is overwhelming. Let me fast forward to my second business, also in orthodontics, also running a business, very similar way. But what I've started to do is really let go of the micromanaging and allowing each of my team members to really bring their best to the situation. It's still a practice. I have to remind myself of it all the time. But let me tell you the enormous reward when you do so. Even small things like managing social media. At some point, when you get big enough, you need someone else to do that for you. And my partner and I were very resistant because we kept thinking, this is our message, this is our image. We want to have all the control over it. But when we were able to release that control to a phenomenal team member, we realized she was even better at it than we were. And if we could just give her some rein to do what she needed to do, she found so much pride and self empowerment in her position and in her ability to bring her best self. But what would choke it off is that control and the micromanagement. So there's one great example in business of when you need to just let go of the outcome. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a vision and a purpose. That is critical in business success. It's critical in life success as well. Is giving yourself permission to dream, to have that goalpost that you're heading towards, to have great clarity even about what success looks like for you. Then to put in the actions that will support realizing that dream. Still critical. Showing up every day for your business, showing up every day for yourself is still so important, and knowing the direction you're going in. But here's the magic that will take your business into a whole new level of success is allowing yourself to let go of the outcome. Once again, a huge lesson learned by so many businesses in 2020. When we had this idea in 2020 of what it should look like, what the business should look like. And then we had to really pivot and transform ourselves in terms of our business models. And the ones that let go of what the outcome would look like were the ones that succeeded. And not only did they succeed, but they even outstretched their own expectations in terms of what could be possible. the power of not holding on too tightly. The same is true in relationships. When we think we can control, when we think that we can influence someone else's actions, really what we start to do is feel bad about ourselves when it doesn't happen. We create unrealistic expectations of our significant others and of our friends. I remember I was so focused one time on how I was going to improve a friendship, and I worked so hard on it, and I wanted so desperately to shape and mold that friendship to what I needed it to be. I was forcing it to a place that it just didn't want to go to. It was that micromanaging. It was holding on too tightly to what that relationship needed to be. And as soon as I let go, I was able to allow that relationship to flourish into what it had to be. And now I could see the beautiful aspects of that relationship that I didn't even notice before. And I could let go of all the stress and the expectations of what I thought it should be. I think we do this in our romantic relationships all the time. We tell ourselves a story of the way it should be, and we try to force the relationship in that direction. And when we do, it just comes out feeling forced and feeling inauthentic and feeling uncomfortable. And I think that if we can just remember to allow relationships to blossom and to grow, we might see a very different side of people. Once again, I am not at all insinuating that you ever settle for something that is not your dream. You still can have enormous dreams, just like I mentioned with your business. You can have dreams for your relationship. You can investigate how to have better communication, for example. If you find yourself in a relationship where you think, wow, we really just are not good at communicating, a phenomenal dream would be, I really want a romantic relationship where I have great communication. Now, research the resources to help you put those practices into place. Absolutely. Get your partner on board. Paint that portrait of success for one another so that you can see what the end goal is, and then let go of the outcome, because it might be something more spectacular. In fact, I almost guarantee it will be more spectacular than you ever thought it could be if you just allowed it to develop on its own. And not every relationship will deliver in that way. And some relationships are really just there for a season, and we're trying to force them to be there for our entire lifetimes. But sometimes the magic is just in that moment, and we can honor it for what it is. This is being shown to me so apparently in my parenting as well. Once again, in parenting, we get tricked into controlling our kids because it works when they're babies. For some of us, I know some of the parents out there are thinking, oh my gosh, I could never control my babies. And I think I told myself a story that I could when I'm speaking of eating and sleeping. Those seem to be the two biggest issues new parents are struggling with. And my children fell into routines that I just followed through on. I was very consistent, and sleeping and eating became something we could do and I could control. And then showing up to appointments or showing up to certain soccer games or soccer practices became the next controlling thing, or what events we were going to sign them up for. And as my children have gotten older, I've noticed I cannot control them and I should not control them. And I don't want to control them. What I've seen is the more we control in our children, the more we strangle them off of their potential and their creativity and their greatness. I mean, the beautiful things that happen in your child's development is allowing them some freedom. Of course, showing them, guiding them, influencing them in other ways, such as showing them how you do something in terms of modeling, or presenting them with situations where they have to learn how to get out of those situations or how to manage those situations. I think parenting is a very active responsibility, but not holding on too tightly to the outcome. let them surprise you. Let them show you an outcome you never could have imagined. But I'm telling you, it feels so much worse when you think that you can control them. And then in terms of meditation, this has been my greatest gift. I have a friend of mine who says to me all the time, I try so hard to meditate, and it's so hard to force my mind not to think. I keep having thoughts flooding me. And that is true for all of us, especially those of us who are high achievers, who are business creators, who are dream creators, who are creatives themselves. We're being flooded with all kinds of ideas and stories all the time. Turning it off is almost impossible. But here's the magic to meditation. And the secret that I was taught early on is allowing yourself to just let go of the outcome. So, not trying to force a certain vision, a certain outcome of meditation, a certain expectation of what meditation should look like, but just letting it go. I learned this first when I was running. That was my very first introduction to meditation, was running. I didn't realize I was meditating when I went on my longer runs, but I was. I love to run long distances. So for me, I'd be on the run for, over an hour or two, and listening to music. I enjoyed listening to music during a certain phase of my running. And I found myself just with the repetitive motion of my steps and the music taking me to another place. I was really meditating. And I only realized it when I stopped running and I missed the benefits of the meditative qualities of running that I found in it. Then, when I started taking a course before I had my daughter 10 years ago, I took a hypnobirthing course leading up to the delivery. And in the hypnobirthing course, they introduced me to a new form of meditation with a visualization of a balloon. I love this visualization exercise. So I share it with you now because it has been so powerful and it's very connected to our conversation today about letting go. So the imagery that works so beautifully is you imagine a balloon filling up with the thoughts that are flooding your consciousness. As you're sitting in meditation and those thoughts keep coming, I wonder what's happening for lunch, or I'm wondering what's happening at work, or I'm stressed about my daughter, whatever is happening in your world, and those thoughts just keep bombarding. Instead of trying to control and hold on to a certain idea of what meditation should look like, let those thoughts just fill up this imaginary balloon. And as the balloon swells and fills with all the thoughts that are coming in, and once it reaches a really enormous size, just let that balloon go and float away. And that imagery allows those thoughts to come in and then just flow right through you. And those same thoughts might start coming in again. Just fill up that balloon, let them come in, let the next thought come in. And then once it gets nice and big, you can let it go again. And I like to coordinate my breathing with that. So on the in breath, I let all those thoughts float in. And then on the out breath, I let that balloon go. And as soon as you let the balloon go, you notice you have a few seconds of thoughtlessness or just floating. And occasionally that time can get bigger and bigger. But once again, don't hold on to the outcome. Just let it happen. I love that practice for meditation. So I give that to you now to see if that will work for you in your meditative journey. And then finally, what I wanted to say about letting go affecting happiness is that it works very well to not hold on to an idea of what you think happiness is. In fact, the resistance I feel from people is exactly that. There's this idea of what a happy life should be that we hold on to so tightly. And when we can't get it, we get frustrated, we start beating ourselves up, or we start blaming other people for even having the idea that there should be such a thing as happiness. But if we have the intention of, I really want to feel joy. I want to feel happiness in this life. If that's your intention, and then maybe seeking out some practices like meditation or finding some other people who are demonstrating a life full of happiness, and then showing up for yourself and then letting go of the outcome. and letting it just present itself as it should. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to leave you with this quote from Deepak Chopra. He says, "In the process of letting go, you will lose many things from the past, but you will find yourself." I couldn't agree more. Have a spectacular week. Bye-bye.